Welcome to my budget deck channel where I try to build decks as cheap and playable as possible. And today it's time for Gladiator Beasts, one of my favorite decks as a kid growing up, even though I played them completely the wrong way and probably abused the fact that they can swap out during the battle phase and not at the end of the battle phase. So yeah, this is not a thing, but I really love this deck and I wanted to make a budget version of it. So let's start out with the cards. You would run double or possibly triple Andal. If you want to run triple, you can do stuff with Link Spider to help you go into your Test Panther. So this is a thing you could consider. I didn't do it, but in the end it doesn't hurt you too much if you actually would want to consider it. So you just bump this card up to 3. So it comes up more that you have one Andal in hand, or 2 possibly, or summon one out with Unexpected Die. Unexpected Die card that you get for free, so this one is pretty neat in this deck, especially because a lot of the time you try to get 2 monsters on board, which one of them is a Glad Beast, so we can go into Test Panther. I run Wormillo. You don't have to run it, but it's quite nice because it's actually type Fish, so this comes in handy with stuff like the Comeback, and popping a monster on board can be quite neat. Problem is this card forces you to pop one. It's not a can effect, so make sure you don't summon it if you actually only have monsters on your own side of the field. Test Tiger, another card that could help you go into Test Panther or trigger stuff like Rejection, or get one monster out of your deck, for example like Darius if you have stuff in the graveyard already, so you can do quite a lot of things with Test Tiger. And since these are all old cards, you will not have once per turn effects on most of these because yeah, well, back in the days that wasn't a thing. There's only a second wave of a Glad Beast support where this was more of a thing, but it's actually pretty neat that way. The level 3 monster that actually banishes stuff from the graveyard as an effect, I run at 2 for multiple reasons. First of all, it's an Aqua, so it helps with the whole type kind of restrictions sometimes. And also, banishing stuff from your opponent's graveyard is actually quite nice against stuff like Eldritch and possibly Virtual World and things. So it's not too bad. So you want to be sure that you actually have one of them in your deck to do these kind of things. Also could help if you want to play like a rank 3 kind of stuff in your deck. There's certain, like Cicada King comes to mind, which you could be playing since the Glad Beast cards don't really restrict you from summoning anything else but Glad Beasts, which is quite nice. So that's a card to definitely consider, and because it's Aqua, I like to run it at 2. One Ash Blossom because you get one for free and the card is just genuinely good, especially against stuff like Maxi. You want to make sure that you actually kind of max out on these, so if you have multiple of them, then I would definitely consider running more. I like to run 3 Sagittari because 2 actually because this card draws you and actually pluses you if you summon it off of other cards. Yes, you send a card to the graveyard, but it doesn't really matter that much. Plus it can be a Gladiator Beast card, so it can be nice if you have stuff like not Rejection though, because it doesn't count as a Gladiator Beast card, which can be very annoying, especially in combination with Test Panther. But Comeback you can use, you can send Charge to the graveyard and so on. So there's quite a lot of stuff that you can do with this card, plus the +1 that you do because you send one to the graveyard. It can be quite nice because you can draw into your disruptive spell traps. So I feel like if you can't do much, then going into this card and drawing 2 cards can actually, well, unbreak your card hand or make you be able to still set some cards to disrupt your opponent and hopefully do something the turn after. The double Bestiary, you could probably get away with playing 3 actually. You could get away with playing 1, depends on what you want to do, but since this is a budget deck profile, but I want to have at least 2 in the deck because your Geyserus is actually quite the nasty card to deal with for your opponent. I want to make sure that I have a way of getting into this card even though I draw it and I don't have a way to shuffle it back into the deck. So 2 felt the most doable still, but you could obviously go for 3. If you have it, Proving Ground is probably a card you want to be running because, well, why not? You can search basically any card. Only thing you can search are level 5 or higher monsters with this, which can be annoying. It can be a good Ash Blossom bait though, so I feel like Proving Ground at least at 2 felt like it would be a good card to run. But since this is a budget deck profile, I did not include it. 1 Beastly Quarry, a card that you don't really need because neither its type does anything for you, nor the effect does much for you, but it's a level 4 monster which can help you go into stuff like Baguska or any other level 4 cards that you want to include. And also it is one of the Glad Beasts that you can normal summon with the highest attack. So in theory, sometimes that can be helpful. Don't have to run it, but I felt like it didn't hurt the deck, and there's not that many other ones, and I kind of wanted this specific ratio of Glad Beasts because you kind of do need your normal summon. It's not too bad, and having more Glad Beasts in hand for the effect of stuff like Augustus is never too bricky or too annoying in the first place. Glad Beast Darius at 3, this card is a massive playmaker in the deck, actually gets you to a lot of things, rank 4s, link climbing, you name it. Even for the fusion summoning, this card is genuinely quite good, so I feel like I definitely want to have it at 3. In case I start with multiple in hand, I have no way of summoning it out. Definitely want to stop that from happening, so this card at 3 I would definitely do. Don't have to, but for me that worked out most of the time. One quest it could go to, but like again, it's a super rare, so I wouldn't necessarily go for 2 in this specific variant. But this card is massively great in this deck. It can recycle your extra monsters besides Test Panther, because Test Panther is not a Glad Beast, so you can't recycle that. But it also can help you add your trap cards back to your hand, which in a more controlled variant like this one, it actually is quite good. And since you can do this basically every turn, this is quite a neat card. Another card that you don't really see in most of the deck profiles, but I decided since I don't run triple bestiary, one Lannister can be quite nice. It's also a level 4 monster, so that can come in handy, and I didn't really have any more options, so I like to run this deck as some kind of toolbox where this could come in handy if both of your bestiaries are in the graveyard and you still want to go into Gyzaris another time. So that can be nice, but most of the time you just run it because it's an 1800 attack point monster as well. Atorix has some kind of, well, it has ways to work out if you want to send stuff to the graveyard for comeback, for example. It also takes the name of bestiary if you need this, and you want to fill up your graveyard, so Atorix can be quite nice. It's a level 4 monster, which is quite cool. Other than that, it doesn't do all that much, but 2000 Defender can come in handy from time to time in a grind game, possibly, especially since these cards also trigger if they've been attacked. So if you know your opponent might not be able to get over 2000 during their next turn, then setting this card would not be the worst that you could do. Double Tenyi Spirit Washuda. This variant is more going first, but this card does also do stuff going first because it gives you an extra monster on board for your Test Panther, because only one of them has to be a Glad Beast. So this one actually is fine. Going second, it puts a monster on board and bounces one of your opponent's monsters, which is quite nice. Plus it would still work with stuff like Andal actually, so I really liked Vishuda in this variant. Double Augustus, you could also decide going for one Noxious and one Augustus, but I feel like Augustus into Augustus can actually do stuff from your hand, whether if you summon Noxious it doesn't do all that much. The whole battle effect isn't really all that helpful in general as well, so I felt running a double of this is more helpful. Plus you could go into a Beast under Bata if you really want to. Most of the time though you want to be going into Tamer Edit, which is genuinely the better card. Monster Reborn, another extender for the deck. It can be bricky, which sounds weird, but if you don't really get your combo started at the start, then Monster Reborn doesn't really do much. But going second, it can be nice, getting stuff from your opponent's graveyard. You pop a lot of things with Gyzaris, so that can also be nice, and it can give you another body on board for your Test Panther, so I would try to run that card as well. Triple comeback, very nice. Also the effect that the monster you summon cannot be destroyed by battle is better than you think actually, because you go in second, it can help you running into your opponent's monster, then triggering the effects. And even going first, sometimes your opponent will not be aware of this and miscalculate their plays, because this is an effect that a lot of people would not be thinking would be printed on this kind of card, making a card not be destroyed by battle. So can help you in certain situations. Gladiator Rejection, that's for some reason isn't called Gladiator Beast Rejection, but be that as it may, your opponent cannot target Glad Beast monsters with card effects, which is quite nice, except during the battle phase. You would think it would be the other way around, but I assume it's better that way, so I guess I'm glad that they printed it this way. And the most important effect on this card is actually when you summon a monster, a Glad Beast monster from your main deck, you can actually summon another one from your main deck with a different type, which the types come in handy again. Which also is triggered by stuff like Unexpected Die, so this is quite neat. In general, this card is just most of the time a no-brainer. Problematic though if you draw 2 or 3 of it, because then you can't really do much with it, since it is not called Gladiator Beast card. You cannot even discard it with Sagittarius. Kind of annoying, but that is the price you pay for running it. One Forbidden Chalice is good going first and going second, just a genuine good stuff card. Could run stuff like Maxi, Ash Blossom, whatever hand traps you like. Impermanence is a card that comes to mind. One of the Fusion, don't have to run it, but it can be neat if you brick on too many Glad Beasts in hand. So getting rid of them and going into one of your extra deck monsters is genuinely pretty good. With this, you could run Neurokius because you can actually go into a semi-decent Glad Beast fusion with 3 materials that doesn't require something specific, because the other ones all require either a specific name or a specific level of monster, which is annoying at times. But yeah, I like the fusion because it does stuff from the graveyard as well, which can be helpful with the cards like Atorix that send stuff to the graveyard. Other than that, yeah, don't have to run it, but it does raise the ceiling of the deck at least a tiny bit. I ran triple Gladiator Beast Charge. First of all, it's not once per turn. Second of all, you can pop quite a lot of your opponent's cards, and it is a rare, so it works quite well in the deck. It's searchable, you can add it back to your hand. All in all, I feel like it's nice, but you could also swap it out for some hand traps if you like. But since this is more of a go first kind of variant, I felt like why not run the Glad Beast cards over other cards, because they at least interact with your cards at least a tiny bit. War Chariot, also searchable off of Test Panther, so I felt like running it at 1 is fine since it's a super rare. Also, the card is genuinely, it's strange because of the win effect. It's not as good as it could be, but a lot of the time it can save your ass, so definitely would run it at least at 1. Another card that probably most people wouldn't run, but since the extra deck has a bit of space if you don't go for the expensive combos and stuff, this one it's a terrible card, don't get me wrong, but you can turn 2 of your Glad Beasts that aren't level 4 or above, aren't level 5 or above, into a level 5 monster, which can be helpful for Tamer Editor. So this one, you don't have to run it, but I actually kind of liked it at 1. Geyserus, probably should run it at 2, but since it's a budget deck profile, I left it at 1. Very good card. Pops cards, it's not once per turn. Can you believe it? So there's quite some shenanigans you can do. Pop stuff before the battle phase, battle, then defusion, get stuff back out of your deck, fusion it again, and stuff like this. There's loads of things you can do with this card to make your opponent's life as miserable as possible. Unless they have any form of interaction, then it's going to be a problem. And Abata is a card that you can run because you get it for free, so you don't have to invest anything in it. If you got the Glad Beast structure deck, well, not, you know, the deck from the solo campaign, so that works pretty well. Usually wouldn't go much into this card, but can use it for certain rank 8 plays if you like. It's not great, but it's actually okay. Better Tamer Editor can summon stuff out, and it has like this effect that you can, if a monster battle, then it does the effect for the Glad Beast monster basically, and it works for things like Esedari, because they don't have the claws on them that they actually shuffle themselves back, so this would work for it, which is a bit strange, but it's fine. One of the more expensive cards in this deck is Domitianus, you know the names. It's a great card. It's a monster negate, sadly. You could run the spell negate. I didn't really like it though, because you have to discard, and decks that don't have a draw engine really in them, you run out of steam very, very, very quickly. So yes, spell trap cards can be the bane of existence in this deck especially, but this card actually achieves a lot more, especially with the battle effect as well, that you can choose what monster your opponent attacks, which obviously you're going to choose the highest attack point monster most of the time. So yeah, it's genuinely a better card. You can't go into it by actually fusion summoning it. You have to go into it by using a Tamer Editor, which is fine though, because your deck kind of tries to do exactly that. The rest is just some rank 8, rank 4 good stuff that you can use to do certain things. and the extra deck, one more Link 4. You probably want to run 2 Test Panther if you have them, at least 3 would not be out of the question as well, but 1 is enough to win games, I'd say. But this is probably the extra deck monster that you would want to invest in if you want to play this deck on a more competitive level. But for a really competitive level, you'd have to add loads of hand traps anyway. Raster Liger is a good Link 4 that you don't have much trouble going into, but it doesn't really do all that much in this specific deck. Cards like Appaloosa are a lot better than it, but this comes for free, and this is an ultra rare, so if you don't have it, don't run it. If you have it, run it definitely over Raster Liger. What you could be doing is go for the whole Codebreaker package, because the arrows of Test Panther actually favor the whole play. Then you could go into 2 Link 4s, which you would have to restructure the extra deck quite a bit, but that shouldn't be much of a problem. Other notable mentions in this deck: Rescue Rabbit, a card that can easily get you to Test Panther, but if it gets ashed, your turn is basically over. In generally, Ash Blossom is quite annoying for the deck, so Called by the Grave, card to consider. Disarm and Parry are cards that work, but they cost you a bit too many resources to actually do stuff. So yeah, can run them, if especially Disarm, if you feel like spell cards ruin your day too much. Since it's not a searchable card, I probably wouldn't recommend it though. The other Link 2 that this deck has, it does stuff, but it doesn't do it well, so you definitely don't have to run it at all if you don't want to. And Gladiator Beast's Respite, it can be a nice Ash Blossom bait, it can be a nice card to reshuffle your hand and see if you can get into something else. Works, but you don't have to draw it, because you don't have to play it because it actually doesn't plus you. It just, well, makes you have a different starting hand than before. At least it's not Glad Beast monsters you have to shuffle back, but cards. So in this variant it would work quite well, but most of the time you're more bricked by the non-Glad Beast cards than by the Glad Beast cards, so I felt like it wasn't necessary, but you could run it if you would want to run it. Hope you enjoyed the deck profile. Leave it a like, subscribe, and most importantly, have a good day.